Hey everyone, Cahlen here, and it's been over 2 years now that I've been living completely outside, basically under my raincoat most of the time. Some of the time I did try and use a haunt tent, but that was only a short period of time, and then I decided it was excessive. Definitely didn't need something like that. And another part of the time I was living under a 10 by 10 foot tarp, but also that seemed excessive, especially if I'm just sleeping by myself. If I had a girlfriend or something like that who wanted to live outside, which is probably a non-existent thing. But if I did have that, then the tarp would get pulled out again and I would use that. But when I'm just living by myself, there's no reason really to use anything other than just my poncho, which is a raincoat, which doubles as a shelter. And we'll take a look at that in a second here. So first of all, I just want to kind of give the setting. So I live on a permaculture farm, but I have this whole area here to garden whatever I want. So this spiral garden, all that stuff over there. Basically, this is all enough food to feed me indefinitely. So I've got food taken care of if things get really bad out there in the world. And this is where I live. There's a giant apricot tree on the farm. I just walk in here. And I've got my solar electric bike. And it's just set up near camp. And the reason that I set it up near camp is so that I can use USB power to charge my phone and my other devices. So these are 6-foot long USB cables which go underneath and come here. So basically when I'm in the tarp laying down, I can be charging my phone while I'm using it. Right now you can see I'm charging my vape pen, and also I can charge my phone with this thing, or basically all kinds of other stuff. So basically this is the battery here, and the solar panels fold up and go in there into these things. So there's two of them. And I just set it out for about 2 days on a sunny day. And it'll be charged up and I'll be able to use the battery power just if I'm not driving it, just to charge my stuff for like 2 weeks or more, right? Because there's a lot of capacity in there. So this is basically my power station. You can see I also use it to put my clothes that I'm not currently wearing. Like this was what I was wearing last night to stay warm, but it's like 100 degrees almost today, so I'm not wearing this, but I'll probably put it on again tonight. And this is my sink. I just fill this with water. This is a platypus, and it has a Sawyer squeeze on it, and if I let it hang down, you can see water comes out, and so that's how I fill up my water bottle, and when I'm cooking, how I fill up my pot. I also have a table over there. Just basically there's stuff underneath the table, like extra food. There's like a big bucket of coconut oil and stuff like that. So anyways, let's take a look. Hitting my head on the tree here. This is the raincoat, right? So this is the poncho. You can wear it over yourself, over all your clothes when it starts to rain. And then when it's time to actually, get some shelter, then you can deploy it like this. So there's basically just a rope that I've tied to this tree, and then I've tied the other end to that cholla plant there. It's a cactus basically. And then I can attach the poncho to that here, and then to the ground in 3 spots. There's one over there too. Put rocks on them so the wind doesn't blow them away. And then I can also tie this rope here to kind of give myself some more headspace to pull up the tarp so it's easier to sit up. And then another important thing, which I learned after 2 years, I got a really big rain that flooded this whole area for the first time, and I got totally drenched. You want to make sure you put trenches in along where water is going to pour down so that it doesn't come down into where you're sleeping and get everything wet. So basically now it comes down and then it flows this way, and also you can see I've got the same thing going on over there. So that's really important. It doesn't take too long to do, but don't forget that part, especially if it rains where you are. So this is my bed. This is a little thermarest which I have modified with there's basically all-season duct tape or Gorilla Tape on the outside here. In between them is a basically aluminum layer which reflects heat back up. So I've slept on this thing in -15°F weather, and I was totally fine. So you can't get even close to that with a normal thermarest. So this adaptation is a really big deal, and it's still super lightweight, and it rolls up really, really compact to the point where I can carry it along with my raincoat and my summer sleeping bag rolled up all together on my belt. So let's go a little bit deeper here. Okay, so there's not much space here, right? But basically everything that I need to survive pretty much indefinitely, except I would need to get more food, is all right here, and I can pack all of this stuff up and carry it with me on foot, okay? So this right here is a bivy sack with my summer sleeping bag in it. So when I get up in the morning, I roll it up so that bugs don't crawl into it, and then I can put it over here to make it something to lean against, because this is like my couch, okay? Then I also have this is the top of my, it's a thing that goes on the top of my backpack. I put my extra socks and underwear in here, and it basically is a pillow. This is my backpack, and really all I carry in the backpack is winter stuff. Okay, so there's a winter sleeping bag in there, there's a winter quilt in there as well, and then there's my winter clothes, and that's basically the whole thing. If I didn't live in a place that was cold, I really wouldn't actually even need the backpack. All I would need is this belt, because this belt is able to carry pretty much everything I want. Okay, so what's in here? Let's remind myself. So this is fire starting stuff. This is my Leatherman multi-tool. This is a big survival knife. This is my penny whistle. This is my water bottle, which I can drink all my food out of. This is a bottle which contains a bunch of different oils: avocado oil, MCT oil, and flax oil. This is my self-defense device. And these are my chlorine dioxide bottles, okay? And this means that I can basically clean any type of water. As long as it's not muddy, I can use this to clean a ton of water. And these two bottles will last me well over a year of fairly regular use. Okay, so it goes a long way. And then in between here is where I would place the rolled up mat, poncho, shelter, and the sleeping bag, right? So I roll those up, and then I can latch them in between, and there's much more space when it's actually on me. And so basically I'll have that, and then, so that's all I need, right? Well, I guess I should tell you about this stuff too. Of course, the food. So these are basically drop leg bags. They attach to the sides of your, basically they are on the kind of the side of your legs on either side. So this one has a whole bunch of my chocolate powder in it, which is a mix of all kinds of different healthy foods basically, and I could survive totally on that. And then this one is full up of basically whole oatmeal, right? Oatmeal is just nice to eat. It's nice to have something that's not a powder, and so, you know, I like to have that as well because it makes me feel more full. And I stick my shoes over here, and in my shoes I will put things like my socks, obviously, and then also my glasses. So I have two pairs of glasses, one for when I'm in here looking at a screen that's maybe a little bit away from me, but not really far in the distance. And then I have the glasses that I'm wearing right now, which I'll put in those shoes, for when I'm out and walking around. Okay, so now I'm inside the poncho, inside the shelter, and this is kind of actually where I spend a lot of my time, especially when I'm working on the computer, coding and that type of stuff. So I'll be sitting here working on my phone or listening to something, and I can either have my phone in my hands, or this phone right now is on a tripod. That's how I'm filming it. So I can basically put that tripod a little bit to the side here and angle it down, and I can basically lay here like this. It's like I'm watching TV, right? If I just feel like watching a movie or something like that. So basically I have a lot of the nice things that everyone has. You're kind of out there in the normal world, people who are living in a apartment or a shelter. I have all of that stuff. It's just all very compact, and you know, one of the main reasons why I went this way many years ago, I had gone through a couple of different moves where I moved from a house to an apartment, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was horrible. I never want to do that again. I hate moving stuff. And then I had to move from my apartment to another apartment. I'm just like, I'm just done with this. And so that's one of the main reasons why I went this way. Because it's like, basically, no, I can go anywhere in the world with what I have, right? And I will have everything that I need, but I don't have anything extra. So there's just some level of, like, you can breathe when you don't have all of the stuff, you know what I mean? So anyways, I suppose I should show you the bathroom, so we'll take a look at that. So we'll exit the shelter of the tree. We go over there. This is my, well, this one's mine. So this can fit in my backpack. This is a solar oven, and I can use that to heat up the water in my water bottle. And then this belongs to the people who own the farm. This is a seriously heavy duty solar oven that'll cook stuff even in the middle of the winter, as long as it's sunny outside. So anyways, I come out here. This is the bathroom. If it's number one, you just kind of go, you know, wherever. Or ideally feed it to the plants. That's actually what I do. So I feed my urine to the plants. So I come around here and you can see, we'll look inside. This is a bunch of straw, and there is, you know what, underneath that straw. So basically, I just have a big pile of straw here, and then there's this, right, so this is all contained, right? And then over here, there's a roof over the top of it and lots of branches. Basically, you take some straw, put it on the ground, you squat down and you do your stuff. There's some toilet paper right here, and then you can use the shovel if you want and scoop it in and throw it out. And then you have to leave this, basically after the last day that you fill this, add something to it, you have to let it sit for I think a few years before it's safe to use. So basically this thing's probably about 2/3 full, and then we're going to build another one on this side so that this one can actually wait the 2 years or whatever, how many years it is before we start using it. So that's how I live, under a raincoat. Basically, I mean, the main things that, you know, people may be worried about, animals. I haven't had any issues with animals. Even when I'm out in the wilderness, I haven't had issues with animals, except maybe like elk almost trampling me because I camped in the wrong spot. But nothing ferocious. I've never run into anything really ferocious that was going to be a threat to me. But I do spend most of my time sleeping on the farm, and it is a place where there are other properties. You know, there's a lot of space out here, but there are other properties, and most properties have dogs, and most properties have fences, and so not a lot of animals get around, and so it's not really an issue. But there are insects and stuff like that, and you kind of just get used to insects being on you. Like right now, there's all the gnats, and you see me always, you know, getting things out of my eyes. You know, you get used to it. Like when the farm owners come out here and the gnats are out, you know, especially their kids, they just go insane. They can't handle it. It's really uncomfortable for them. But after you've done it for a while, you don't really care. Like I used to really dislike spiders, but you know, there's probably half the time that I'm sleeping, there's probably a spider somewhere in my bivy sack. Well, that's probably not true. It's probably like 1/10 of the time or something like that. But it's just like, I just don't care, you know. I've never been bitten by a spider in the entire 2 years I'm out here. I very rarely get bitten by anything except maybe an ant if I'm like standing on their hill or something like that. And mosquitoes, I mean, there's a lot of mosquitoes that come out, but I'm able to generally protect myself, and they don't seem to be very attracted to me. Like someone was saying that they came out for 5 minutes and they got bit like 8 times by mosquitoes, and I was like, I've been bit like less than 8 times this entire year. So I don't know what's going on there, but for some reason I seem to be less attractive to the mosquitoes. So, and then the other stuff would be the weather, right? So I sleep in this all year round, even when it gets, you know, negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit and it's snowing. Okay. So but you do have to be careful. If it's going to be a really, really serious snow, like more than a foot, you're going to need to wake up at night and like start shoveling stuff away, right? You don't want all of that to come down on you over the whole night, because it's going to fall in on your tent, right? And then it's going to fall in all over you, and that's happened to me, so that can be uncomfortable. Snow's not really as much of a big deal as people think. You know, I don't use fire for heat. You know, I will use fire to cook occasionally, but I basically don't need fire. And just having the right clothes, even when it gets down to what I was saying, negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit, hasn't been a problem. And I haven't even been, last winter, I wasn't even wearing all of my winter clothes. I was like testing myself to see how much I really needed, and I didn't even need all of it, okay? So wind is another issue. This seems to hold up really, really well, even in big windstorms. Rain, of course, is another big issue. Like I said, if it's going to flood, you need to keep in mind where you're sleeping, because if there's a lot of water all of a sudden, is it going to pool up where you are, or is it going to flow past where you are? And if it's going to pool there, you probably shouldn't sleep there. If it's going to flow past you, you should probably put these trenches in. right? And then also keep in mind that, you know, I'm 6 feet tall. My feet are going to stick out here, right? So that's why I have the bivy sack. Basically, the only reason I have the bivy sack is so that I can sleep under this thing and not have to curl up in order to sleep in a rainstorm. I can actually still stick my feet out because that bivy sack is going to keep my sleeping bag from getting wet. So basically, weather can be an issue, but for me, it hasn't really been that big of a deal. It does have a lot to do with where I live. I live in New Mexico, kind of in the high mountainous areas, and it does get really cold, but most days of the year it's sunny. Almost every single day of the year it's sunny. There's a few days where it'll be cloudy for a couple of hours and there might be some rain. And then there's a few days where it's like clouds all day, but most of the year it's sunny, even in the winter. Okay, so it's fairly comfortable, fairly nice place to live. I probably wouldn't want to be doing this as much in a place like where I used to live, Washington State, because it doesn't get as cold, but it's always wet. So when I first went out and started living in my truck, after I was living up in Washington in my yurt, and you know, it wasn't even that cold. It's like 32 degrees, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. It was about freezing, but it was always wet. And it was just the fact that it was always wet makes everything feel colder and more miserable, okay? So you can handle a lot of cold, or at least I can handle a lot of cold, as long as it's not wet. And so if you are going to live outside, I do highly recommend the southwest of the United States because it's drier. And wetness is really the key issue and the main thing that can get you killed out here, because if you get wet and you don't have extra clothes, then you're screwed. And like me, I only have one pair of clothes that I keep in my bag. Now, I do have a bag which I have filled with all of the older versions of the same stuff that I have now. Stuff that, you know, I bought newer stuff, like this shirt, for example. I have an older version of this shirt in that bag. The bag is an older version of a bag that, you know, I have a better bag now. I have this exact same poncho in that bag, all that type of stuff. So it's good to have redundancy. So I do have that if I were to get wet. But if I were out in the mountains or something like that and I didn't have that with me, then I need to be extra super vigilant about not getting wet, because again, if you get wet, you could be in trouble, right? You may think, oh, I'll just start a fire. Well, it just rained, so good luck. So anyways, it can be dangerous, and I would say wetness is the main concern. And the rest of the things that everyone is mostly worried about, like animals and bugs and stuff like that, it just doesn't seem to really be as big of a deal as we are made to think. So anyways, that's living under a raincoat. Hope that's useful, and I'll see you guys later.